All right, y'all, welcome to another video coming to you from the beach here in the Philippines in my backyard. It's a tough life, guys, I know, but hey, we got to do it. So we had a bit of a storm last night here. We had a little low pressure system. It really wasn't too defined, but it was out there, and it come howling through last night, knocked the power out. We've been in a brownout most of the day. So I figured I'd come out here and make a video and just talk to y'all about a topic that I've been seeing here on the interwebs, on the YouTubes, with a couple of people who have talked about this. So I was just going to give you my 2 cents on it. And it's about regret of early retirement. So I've seen more than a couple of these videos where some of these guys, they've retired young in their 50s like I did. And they started a YouTube channel like I did. You know, it seems to be the thing to do nowadays. Everybody's going to make their fortune, right? Or they're at least going to use it as some sort of a hobby or what have you. And I've seen more and more of these videos where they're coming up and it's like some of these guys are like, man, I kind of regret retiring early. And so it got me to thinking about a lot of this stuff because I've been down that road, you know, because when I watch these YouTube videos, I also go and I read the comments and it's just comment after comment after comment after comment of guys kind of going through the same deal, right? And a lot of you guys that follow my channel may feel the same way or have had those same feelings too. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today and some of my struggles that I've been through on it and probably some of the reasons behind it. You know, guys, I don't have any of this scripted today. I'm just sitting here. It's Sunday afternoon. Yeah, of course, I'm having a little bourbon today and we're going to just sit and talk about this, okay? So why is it that so many guys my age are retiring before 62, retiring before their Social Security age, and then they get a little bit into this and they have that regret? Well, there's a lot of things that are behind this, I think, and so you really got to think about this with a little bit of common sense, right? So we've all been workers, right? If you're an American or you're in the Western world and you live in a country like the United States where it's just a daily grind and, you know, you are raised from the time you're little bitty to be a good worker, to have good work ethic and realize that, hey, you know, you've got to work until you retire or until you die, whatever. We've all been brainwashed into that, right? And it really is a brainwashing because you leave the United States, you leave parts of the West, and not everybody feels the same about it. You can even go into parts of Europe. I haven't been there yet, but I've done a little research on Europe. But you can go in parts of Europe and they look at work differently than Americans do. And so that's where I'm kind of going on this, guys. You know, I can remember whenever I was a kid, when I was 12 years old, my dad, he sat me and my brother down. My brother's just 14 months younger than me. But he basically said, hey, if you want to have a vehicle to drive when you turn 16, you better start working all summer long. You better start saving that money back. And so we did. We were out there setting tile with my dad, working for him, being laborers. And sometimes we had to pretty much do it for him because we couldn't go work for somebody else because it was slightly illegal back then. But my dad could have us out there, right? He could have his sons out there, and it was legal. But anyway, he taught us good work ethic. My mom and dad both taught us good work ethic. And we learned to work, at least when we were not in school, we were working from the time I was 12 years old on. That was just the way of life. And some of you guys out there that are watching my video have been through something similar. I'm sure of it. It's not, especially in the South and in the working parts of America, man, it's just kind of the way it is. If your parents had that opportunity or had that ability to put you to work, they put you to work, especially if you're a child of the 80s, and I am. You go on and you're like, okay, I got to finish high school out. I've got, and I had the opportunity to go to college. That was one thing that was very important to my parents, was that me and my brother both get our education. And they provided that for us. And we were very fortunate in that. We were very blessed in that. So we got an education. So after we got out of college, and you get out and you've had your, you're not, now you are 100% into the working field. Now you're adulting, right? Some of you guys did it at an earlier age than me because you didn't go to college. You got out of high school. Some of y'all didn't even finish high school, right? And you went right into the adulting field. Well, no matter what age you went into adulting, and what I mean by adulting is you worked, all the time. You were now a product of, hey, I got to go to work. I got to support a family. I've got to do this. I got to do that, right? You are part of the grind. There is an adjustment period, right? It doesn't matter if you're 18 years old or you're 25 years old, or you're even like me. I was starting a new job, a new career when I was 32 years old. You kind of go through this same process, even if you've already been in the work field and you've been adulting for years, but then you decide one day, hey, I'm going to go try something different. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go work. I'm going to go find me another job. And you do. So you start your new job. How long does it take most of us to really, truly fall in and completely adjust to your new job? Whether it could be the same field, but it's at a different company. That could take a couple, 3, 4 years, right? Depending on what you're doing. Like for me, I went from setting ceramic tile to being a police officer, and I didn't know anything about being a police officer. Yeah, I went through the academy, I went through the field training, I went through all that, but man, on the job, it's a whole different world. And so I had to adjust, I had to learn. And it was probably 5 years into that career before I got to where I really felt comfortable with everything that I had to do on that job. And most cops will tell you that. They'll tell you, you don't really learn how to do that job until you've been a cop for 5 years. And what I mean by that is, yeah, anybody can go out there and make traffic stops. Anybody can go out there and take a report call, right? But it takes some time to learn how to deal with the public, like learn how to deal with domestic situations. And I mean, truly learn how to deal with them, not just go out there and say, hey, knock it off, and then go on to your next call. It's going out there and trying to resolve some problems, right? And there's a lot of aspects of policing in America that, we have to learn how to do. And like I said, it takes about 5 years to really grasp that, to get a really good, comfortable feel of it. Well, retirement can be the same way, right? So, man, I've been doing the same job for at minimum 20 years. A lot of you guys have been doing the same thing for 30, 35, even 40 years. My dad was that way. And the unfortunate thing in the Western world, especially in the United States, is a lot of times your job becomes your identity. It really does. When people meet you in public for the first time and they're getting to know about you, one of the first things they're going to ask you is, what do you do for a living? And the reason they do that is because they want to know what kind of money you make. That's the bottom line. And so your job becomes your identity in America. And so you've had this identity for 35, 40 years or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're just like, boom, I'm out, I'm done, I'm retired. Well, you're going to have to take some time to adjust into that, right? To adjust into that new identity of, hey, I'm a retiree now. I'm no longer a cop. I'm no longer a mechanic. I'm no longer whatever. It's going to take some time. But just like when you had to learn that job or that new career, it's going to take about 2, 3, everybody's a little bit different, right? 2, 3, 4, 5 years to really truly settle into retirement, your new life. It's going to take that time. It makes sense, you know? That's kind of human nature. I know it's not rocket science here, but it's just something to think about. It's going to take a little bit of time to adjust. So I'll give you an example of my situation, right? I didn't even do I did my job for 20 years. It's not like I was a lifelong copper, right? I was just a 20-year cop. And 6 days after I retired, I was in the Philippines living this new life. And I was going, oh my God, now what do I do? Well, you're sitting there day after day and you're going, man, okay, there's not only am I adjusting to a new culture here in the Philippines, but I was having to adjust to a whole new way of life. You think about it. For 20 years, I carried a gun damn near every freaking day, on or off duty. It was just part of my routine when I'm getting dressed and I'm getting ready to walk out the door. It's like, hey, grab my gun, put it in a holster, put it in whatever, and go. Well, I moved here to the Philippines. I'm not allowed to have a gun. Foreigners can't own guns here. And so, am I carrying that gun around with me every day? No, I don't even have one. And so that in and of itself is a huge, huge change. It's different. It's changed. You almost feel naked sometimes. I did it first. Now, one thing that probably helped me out on that was moving to a new culture. I couldn't imagine where if I was still in the United States and there was such a thing as, okay, when you retire as a police officer, you're no longer allowed to carry a gun anymore. You're going to have to go naked, and then still living at the same house, driving the same vehicle, going to the same Walmart, doing everything else. But now I'm walking around those places with no gun. That would be really, really difficult for me to adjust to. And that's something I did not have to adjust to when I came here, because I'm in a whole different culture. So I think that helped me in a lot of ways. It helped me adjust to a new way of life. But there was still this whole deal of, man, I got to adjust to what do I do with my time? Because another thing about living in a foreign country, a lot of times, especially the Philippines, is I'm not allowed to work. Can I have a YouTube channel and make some money that comes through the United States? Yeah, that's legal. Do I monetize my personal channel? No, I got tired of that, and I do that on purpose because I got tired of it being something that I had to do. And see, guys, this is the beauty of it. When you're retired, you don't have to do anything anymore. And we'll get to that here in just a minute. That mindset of you don't have to do anything anymore, all right? But there's still this adjustment period. And I've been here 4 years. I've been retired 4 years. And I'm finally, it took me probably 3 years into this before I've really started feeling comfortable with my lot in life, right? The way I live my life. And that's when I really kind of was like, why am I trying to bust my ass on this YouTube channel? Nobody cares about it anyways. Nobody really watches it. Why am I stressing myself over something that I don't need? So I like doing that. And it's because I want to. It's not because I have to. And I think that's one of the biggest things one of the biggest hurdles you got to get over is the fact that you don't have to do anything that you don't want to. Whenever I was a cop for 20 years, I was a street cop for 20 years. And I had a radio attached to my hip at all times. And it didn't matter if I was at home on my lunch break eating dinner with my family, or if I was out at a restaurant on my lunch break, or anywhere I was, if I was on duty and it was my working hours, I was subject to that radio. I had to answer that radio call. And so if they called my number, you know, they called my badge number, my call sign, and I didn't answer that, I was in trouble. So I had to always be listening to that radio. And I also had to be at everybody's beck and call. So if it was an emergency deal, they could pull me off my lunch hour and tell me to go wherever, right? And so for 20 years, I was at everybody else's beck and call all the time. And trust me, that gets old. It gets old. Even on my security job where I met Christine at, I had to carry a radio with me. The security guys at that company, we didn't get to eat and have a real lunch break. We got to go grab some food and take it back to our station where we were assigned to at the moment. But we were always subject to anything else that came along. So like if I was down in the scanning room where the employees are going into the vault to go work, and I'm sitting there with my food, trying to eat my food, and somebody's coming or going out of the vault, you know, from upstairs to downstairs or whatever, I got to stop eating or whatever. I got to put my fork down, and I've got to, you know, make sure I'm monitoring the scanning machine and the x-ray and everything else and get them through. And then if they don't pass, then I've got to make sure they get past, and I got to make sure they don't have any gold or silver on them. Yeah. In other words, it was a constant deal of, even on my security job, I was always at somebody's beck and call. Well, then when I moved to the Philippines, I'm not. Hell, I hardly ever hear from anybody anymore. And it took me a while to really start appreciating that fact. I'm not at everybody's beck and call, so I don't have to make YouTube videos. I don't have to go jump when somebody says jump. I don't have to do any of that stuff. And then once you start appreciating the beauty of that, then you can start appreciating retirement. Now I'm going to tell you a little story about my neighbor Richie. Now Richie, he's 85 years old. He's my neighbor next door. He's an American and good guy. And this old man cannot sit down for 2 seconds. He just can't do it. And I'm not telling you guys anything that I haven't already told him. He's an old cuss, and I like to go give him a hard time about it sometimes, right? Well, one day, and he gives me a hard time too, basically calling me lazy half the time. Like one day I was upstairs taking my afternoon nap, or taking an afternoon nap, and he come over to visit. Christine told Richie that I was upstairs taking a nap. And of course, I had to hear about that one. And what I told Richie was like, hey, you know what? I worked graveyard shift for 14 freaking years. 14 years. There was many times when, after I got off my shift, I didn't have time. I had to go drive down to the courthouse, and I had to go sit and wait on lawyers to play their lawyer games, because they don't give a shit about the cops, right? They don't care. They go play their lawyer games, and they would keep us there till, I don't know, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, only to have the case dismissed because somebody didn't show up, or it got not just dismissed. Sometimes they just got rescheduled. The cases got rescheduled. And so they didn't give a crap about us and the fact that I'd been working all night long. I'd just finished a 10-hour shift, and here I was waiting for them to play their lawyer games, and I'm not sleeping. And so then I'd probably leave the courthouse maybe 1, 2 o'clock, and then I'd go home and maybe get a couple hours of sleep before I had to get up and start going about some other business, right? Because I've got other things to do other than just work. And so I missed hours and hours and hours, days of sleep those 14 years that I worked graveyard shift. There was many times I was at funerals because I was on the honor guard. I did that for years and years. Matter of fact, I'm going to brag about myself for just a little bit, but I would be, after a graveyard shift, if the supervisor that was over the honor guard needed somebody to go to a funeral, they knew that they could call old Tim, and Tim would, okay, I'll go do it. And sometimes I was the only one there from our department, representing our department. Did that pay off for me in the end? Nope, didn't. It didn't pay off at all. And that's another story I might tell y'all one of these days. There is some bitterness in there if you didn't sense that. But the fact is, guys, I missed a lot of sleep over 14 years of working graveyard shift. And then I worked another, what was it? Well, I only worked 2 years that I had day shift hours. The rest of them were on evening shifts. So, yeah, there was many times I was sleep deprived. Well, one of the things that I noticed that when my mom was going through her deal with Alzheimer's, and it started with dementia and developed into Alzheimer's, and I remember talking to my mom during that time, back when she could even still talk to me and even knew who I was. She would tell me a lot of times, I can't sleep. I can't sleep at night. And I was telling her, well, Mom, I understand that. I work these odd hours. I work shift work, and, try some Benadryl. Try that first. And because I would have to take Benadryl sometimes just to get a good night's sleep, because I was trying to sleep at some odd hours or whatever. So I told my mom that. But anyway, to make a long story short, and I'm no doctor, I'm no neurologist or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure sleep deprivation is either a symptom or it contributes to dementia and Alzheimer's. One of those. Some of you guys that may know, put it in the comments, but that's my theory. Just watching my grandmother and my mother go through Alzheimer's. Well, of course, I've got that genetic thing in my blood too, so I need to be careful. And so what I told Richie was this: if I want to lay down and take me a nap and catch up a little bit of that sleep that I missed back in the day, then I'm going to do it. And you or nobody else is going to make me feel guilty about that. If I'm tired, I'm going to get me some sleep. That's just the way it's going to be. And so, yeah, if I feel like taking a nap one afternoon, I will. Or at any given time. I don't feel the least bit guilt about that. So anyway, I got off on this little tangent of Richie, right? So one day I was over there, and he was telling me this story. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but he got a little upset because he had some guests staying over a little bit too late. And he said, this was on a work night. And I said, Richie, a work night? Number one, you're in the Philippines. Number two, you're 85 years old and you've been retired a long time. What the hell are you talking about a work day, a work night? And he goes, well, by God, he goes, if I can't get up and work, you might as well just put me in the ground. And, I joked around with him about it a little bit. But unfortunately, that is the way a lot of the older generation really believe. They believe that when they stop working, they're dead. You might as well just put them in the ground. And I say that, unfortunately, because guys like that, and guys, I'm not judging or anything like that. I mean, if that makes you happy in going out there and busting your balls every damn day, even in retirement, makes you happy, then be happy. I'm not judging you on that. But it really is kind of a sad testament to the brainwashing that the American grind puts on people, right? Puts on Americans. And they've done this, they've brainwashed it so much to think that if we're not out there doing something, that we might as well just lay down and die. Why? Why does that? Why do we got to feel that way? Is it guilt? Because I'm not working? If I don't have some work to do on a given day, I need to feel guilty for that? Maybe there's just nothing else to do that particular day, right? Who knows? But the fact of the matter is, you know, that's the way Richie is. He thinks, man, if I'm not out there doing something, if I'm not working, I might as well just lay down and die. And he doesn't understand the fact that, you know what? I have no problems with guilt if I want to lay down and take me an afternoon nap. So we kind of butt on that. And I've worked around guys like Richie my entire life and love them. They are some of the best people to work with, work around and everything else. But it's sad that we have that mentality in the United States to where we feel like that's all there is work. Where you go into some countries, even in Europe, like France, Italy, places like that, Americans might call them lazy, but they're really not. They just know how to enjoy life. They know how to enjoy the simple things, like sitting back and taking a long lunch and drinking a glass of wine with that and enjoying some good conversation with their friends and family, right? How many Americans do that stuff anymore? Not very many. So something to think about on that, right? Well, one thing that I used to always get frustrated with, back when I was in the United States and my mom and dad were still alive, right? It'd come about Christmas time. And one of the big challenges was always, what do I get mom and dad for Christmas? Now, my mom liked to collect some things, so I could always kind of find some things with her, right? If I could find. But my dad, he didn't collect anything. He didn't hunt. He didn't fish. My dad's hobby was eating barbecue or something like that. I mean, that was pretty much all he had to do. He didn't have any hobbies like woodworking or anything like that. And so it was always really hard. And even though my dad was still working, it was still hard buying for my dad. Clothes might be one of the few things that I could, I could buy my dad that was relatively safe, as long as he liked to wear it. But my dad just didn't have any hobbies. Like, I couldn't go out and buy him a new rod and reel for Christmas, or I couldn't go buy him a gun, or I couldn't go buy him a scope for a rifle. I couldn't do any of that stuff, right? He wasn't interested in it. Just wasn't his thing. And the reason was my dad's entire life was work and eating. He loved to eat. He loved to smoke barbecue, things like that. Well, it used to be frustrating for me, right? Everybody that wanted to buy his dad something for Christmas. Well, then I retired, and I did have some hobbies, shooting guns, and I had my bow, and I had fishing stuff, and I had everything else in the United States, but I gave it all away before I moved here. Well, not my guns, but, everything else I just gave away. And then I get into the Philippines. Well, I can't have guns. I can't have all that kind of stuff, right? I can do a little bit of fishing if I could figure out how to fish in the ocean over here, but that's about it. And so I quickly found myself over here going, man, you're just like your old man. You're just like Dad. You don't have any hobbies. Well, what did I have to do? I had to start figuring out some hobbies. Well, one of the things that I really sunk my efforts into was this YouTube channel, right? I started really getting into the videography, trying to better my skills on that and so on. I haven't been doing that here lately, but I've still got some of those skills. I got good editing skills, or I got some editing skills, so on. All these little things I worked on. Then I got really frustrated with the YouTube thing. Number one, because I like to see results. I like to see something getting bigger and growing or whatever. Well, people just weren't interested in watching a YouTube channel about the province of the Philippines. Now, if I was in Angeles City, or if I was in, Pattaya, Thailand or something like that, yeah, I could probably get a lot of views. But people really, there's only so much you can do about the province life here, out here in the province where I live. People really aren't interested in that because that's not where they want to come retire to, like I am. So, yeah, when I wasn't getting any results on that, I lost a lot of interest, and that's when I just decided, you know what, I'll make videos, but I'm going to do it on my time. I'm not going to do it to worry about having a channel, a successful channel or anything like that. This is for me, not for anybody else. And so, yeah, am I running a successful channel? No, I'm not. Do I care? No, I don't. It's for me and it's for Christine. That's it. But one of the things that I did realize I needed to start doing was taking care of my health. Because once I got here to the Philippines, I wasn't working out like I used to. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. So I had to get back in some shape. So then I started getting on a workout regimen, and I still stick to that to this day. And I strongly recommend, if you are retiring, I don't care where you are in this world, do some exercise. Even if it's just going on a walk, doing some push-ups, some sit-ups around the house. Main thing, take care of your heart, do cardiovascular, and watch your diet and all that kind of stuff. Because what you don't want to do is start losing your health because you just don't do anything anymore. And, you know, me giving Richie a hard time, I know that's where he's coming from. You know, he's 85 years old, and he's definitely got a lot more wisdom than I do. I mean, shoot, he's got 30 years of wisdom on me, right? And so what he's trying to tell me is yeah, you can't just sit around and die. You've got to get up, you've got to do some exercise, and his form of exercise is work. It's working around the house, piddling around the house, doing all that kind of stuff, right? Well, I don't have a lot of work around my house to do anymore. We finished a lot of that last year. We just got some maintenance stuff, and it's not something that's going to keep me busy every stinking day. It's just not going to do it. So what I had to do was come up with a workout regimen, something that I can do every day. And that's what I do. I just do some body weight exercises, and then I go for a jog. And trust me, it's a slow jog. I'm an old fat guy. I can't run very fast anymore. But yeah, I run 2 to 3 miles depending on how I feel that day, and it works pretty good. But you don't have to go on a run. You can just go for a walk. And that's something I've also been doing too, is taking my dog for a walk. I'm trying to pull some kilos off her, but it also does me some good, and it gives me just a little bit more exercise throughout the day. Like I've said in some other videos, you know, me and Christine's really gotten busy on this dancing thing. We're trying to learn how to dance, right? But another hobby that I got into, something that's not really active or whatever, is, you know, when me and Christine went to the United States last year, I picked up my mandolin and we picked up a guitar for her. Christine hasn't even touched her guitar. And do I care? No, because there's going to come a point in time when she will, when she's ready for it. I go through phases on mine. And I was talking about this with Christine earlier, is like, so I almost burn myself out on it because I want to be so regimented and practicing that I almost practice too much. So I'd pick up my mandolin, and I did this for months and months and months. And I would practice like at least 30 minutes, usually about an hour a day. And I'd practice it, and I'd practice it, and I'd practice it. And I wasn't seeing a lot of results. And I was getting frustrated with it. And then one day I just put it down. I didn't work on it. I picked it up a week later, and the things that I was struggling on were just like no big deal. I went right through them. And that's where I learned a lesson on that, was I was working on it too hard. I needed to put the thing down, take a break from it, pick it back up, and I'll progress at a fine speed, whatever, you know? So my point with that is so I've had to develop me some hobbies. So one of them is one of my hobbies, but it's more of a lifestyle thing, is working out. So a couple hours of my day, every day, is working out. And then I spend another 30 minutes to an hour learning how to dance, right? It's some more physical activity for me, but it's something that me and Christine are going to have a really good time when we go on our travels with. A lot of y'all might be laughing about that. Well, I want to see those videos, Tim. No, you're not going to see them, not until I get good enough or whatever. Or we're on that cruise, and if I can video it, I might. But also the mandolin, picking up an instrument, learning an instrument. For you, it might be a guitar. It could be anything or whatever, you know. So in other words, you've got to find some hobbies. You've got to find some things to do. And I remember my grandpa on my mom's side, that was something he did. He would go out and he'd pick up cans on the side of the road until he got swiped by a car, caught the mirror of a car that got too close to him on the side of the road, and he quit that. Grandma made him stop. But he used to go out there, and just the act of walking and picking up cans every day was really good for him. And when he stopped that, his health started slipping. But Grandpa also got into woodworking. Grandma and Grandpa both got into upholstering furniture and things like that. They were good at all that sort of thing. But what I'm saying is when you retire, I don't care if you're in your 50s or your 60s, try to get you a hobby. Try to find you a hobby. Something that's going to fill your time, that's going to be something that you want to do. If working's your thing, then do it. If you want to set you up a woodworking shop and have a lathe and all this kind of stuff, and you do that kind of work, that's cool. I kind of started that back in the States. I've got a little MIG welder, a little wire feed MIG welder. I didn't use gas with it, but I just used the flux, rod or whatever it was, wire. But I got into like making crosses and things like that out of horseshoes and horseshoe nails and railroad spikes and all that sort of thing. Well, I've got the welder here in the Philippines, but I cannot get my hands on like horseshoes and things like that. It would be very costly and very difficult to get heavy items like that here. And like I was telling Christine the other day, maybe I need to just see what I can start making out of the metal products that I can get here in the Philippines, whether it's rebar or angle iron or, channel steel or whatever. Just try to use what I got there and make artistic projects out of those. Maybe. I don't know. Something to think about. And like I said, in retire, maybe it's going to be having 2 or 3 different hobbies. One thing that you can do for a little bit, you get tired of it, and then you can move on to something different. You get tired of that, then you can go back to what you were doing before or what have you. But the main thing is you've got to get the mindset. It's the mental thing, right? Is number one is you're still a man. You are still a man. You're still providing for your family. Even in retirement, you worked hard for that pension or that Social Security or whatever. You earned it. It's okay. If you want to take that nap, you can take that nap. But you've got to get that through your mind. And until you do, you're not going to really start enjoying your retirement. If you have the extra money in your budget, then, man, go do some things, see some things, go to concerts that you used to you didn't have time to go to. I don't know. There's lots of ways that you can take little road trips on throughout the day that aren't too expensive or whatever. I mean, everybody's financial situation, their retirement situation is different. We were very fortunate to be able to come here to the Philippines, and that gives me a little extra money to travel with, and that's why we do. We do that traveling, and we have a lot coming up. So, but traveling may not be your thing. Don, a guy I worked with, he was a retired Oklahoma trooper. He absolutely said, no, I don't care about traveling anywhere. I'm like, you don't want to go see anywhere? He goes, no, I've been everywhere I want to go. I don't want to see anything else. But he was also one of these guys, he will work to the day he dies. He loves that routine. He loves that working routine. And that's Don. You know, you got to love the guy. I mean, he was great to me, but that's just the way he is. And again, I'm not trying to judge people or anything like that, but I see more and more of these videos where a lot of these guys are going, man, I'm kind of regretting retiring. Man, don't regret it. You just give yourself some time to adjust. Remember, it's going to be like starting a new job. It's going to take you a few years to adjust and get comfortable with your new life, with your new title, with your new freedom. Because that's what you absolutely have, is you've got freedom now. All right, guys. Well, I hope some of my rantings here or some of my rambling ons here might help some of you guys think about a few things. If you're thinking about retirement, or if you're struggling in retirement, think about that. You know, you got to get past the mental part first. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll catch y'all on the next one.